Hey, good morning, everybody. I've got something to share for you guys I hope is encouraging to you. I love you guys so much. I was reading the book of Job, and the book of Job is pretty long. It's over 40 chapters long, and it's almost like the length of the book is sort of telling a part of the message of the book. Because the book is about suffering. It's about Job, and he was incredibly wealthy. He had a great family that they would get together all the time because they just loved being around each other. And it all starts to get taken away from him. And eventually, he's left to the point where he's like, man, I just wish I hadn't even been born. Now, I don't know if that's where you're at right now, but maybe. I mean, things are pretty tough for some people right now. And it's almost like this question is in our mind, how many chapters does this book go? Is this going to be like a 5-chapter suffering story? Or is this going to be a 40-chapter Job length type of book that's just going to go on and on? And the story's been really powerful for me because when he starts to go through this suffering, he tells his wife, he says, I'm not going to abandon God. He is going to stay engaged with God. But it's not easy. In fact, he has 3 different friends come along, and they all start to say, Job, you know the reason why you're suffering right now is because you've not been good. You've basically sinned, and therefore God is punishing you. And so can you imagine having to go through this suffering, and then you just get this weight thrown on you by your friends that, oh, that's the reason why you're suffering is because you've done something wrong. This is all your fault. And I hope you don't feel that way. I don't think any of the suffering we're dealing with right now is our fault, but suffering is still really tough. And what's interesting about Job is he goes through it and he starts to just tell God exactly what he's thinking. And he is kind of pretty bold, I would say, to say, God, I do not like this. I don't think I deserve this. And what's interesting about it is he's putting all of the blame at God's feet. Even though at the beginning of the story, it was actually Satan who was the one that made this happen. And so you're kind of thinking, Job, it's a little misplaced here. And what we get to is this point in the story where God responds to Job's complaints, and he kind of sets Job straight, it seems like. He's kind of like, hey, this wasn't me. I think is the message he's giving. I'm the one that made all this good stuff. You don't have any of the power that I do. And we know from the story that it wasn't even God who's making this suffering happen. So it kind of seems like God is setting Job in his place. Except we get to the next chapter after God talks to Job, and God starts to talk to Job's friends, the ones who were saying this was all Job's fault. And he starts to lay into them and saying, you did not speak what was right. This was not the accurate truth that you could give Job, that this was all his fault. And so we have this really weird relationship going on between God and Job and his friends, where the friends think it's his fault, Job thinks it's God's fault, Satan knows it's his fault. And yet this is where it all ends. God says Job is the one who has been doing things right, even through the suffering. Apparently laying things at God's feet, laying the blame at God's feet, even if that's not accurate, God said, that's what I wanted you to do. Because it engaged Job with God. No matter how long the suffering lasted, 40 plus chapters, Job stayed engaged with God. It wasn't the accuracy of what Job said that God cared about, it seemed like. It seemed that all that God cared about was that Job stayed engaged. So talk to God. Don't worry about whether you know what's going on or not. Just tell him what you're thinking. Tell him what you're feeling, and let him straighten you out if he needs to. If you don't know the story, it ends really great. It ends in this place where Job is blessed 2 times over by God. And I don't think Job would have got that blessing if he had abandoned God and walked away. But he doesn't. He stays engaged. That's my encouragement for all of us right now, guys. Stay engaged to God. No matter what you're thinking, what you're feeling, we're going to get through this on the other side. And I think the Lord's going to have a blessing for us. Love you guys so much. Hope you have a great day. Bye.